great edition of Mississippi Stories. I am your host, Marshall Ramsey. I'm editor-in-large and editorial cartoonist for Mississippi Today. I had to think of there for a second what I do. But anyway, thank you for watching. We got a great episode today, a great guest. I tell you what, do you love Mississippi? Yeah, well, you know, I like it. It makes for a good career. And our guest today has come up with a great new Substack magazine called Rhoades. And Lauren Rhoades is with us. She is a Mississippi transplant, like myself, who's originally from Denver, Colorado. You went to the University of Colorado. You were not part of the trade for Coach Prime.
Not at all.
Not at all. You came here via AmeriCorps and through Food Corps, which I think is particularly cool. That's a very cool part of AmeriCorps. And you liked it so well, you stuck around.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So seriously, and that was the same way with me. I moved here I'm from Atlanta, but I moved here from San Diego, which on paper didn't make a lot of sense to come here. You know, it's perfect weather, heat and humidity. But I fell in love with it too, and you did also. Tell us a little bit about that when you came here and your first impressions when you came to Mississippi.
Well, I feel like there's always sort of like a honeymoon period too. Like you get here and you hear all the stereotypes about Mississippi, and then you get here and it's always like you're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And so I just fell in love with the people I met. I loved the work I was doing. I was working in schools, teaching kids about healthy food, and I got to garden all day basically. So that was fun. I love, you know, being outside. So I don't know, I just kind of like fell in love with it. And in Jackson especially, I feel like you can find a community so easily, and it's big enough that you can like have a variety of things you do, but small enough where you can see the same people if you go to events enough and make friends. So
Yes.
it sucks you in really quick.
It sucks you in. So when you left there, where did you go after you were with Food Corps?
So I was with Food Corps for 3 years, and then I actually started a food business. I started a fermented food business. So I started selling at the farmer's market while I was doing Food Corps. I was making sauerkraut and kombucha, and then I started doing that full time, and that was a whirlwind.
Okay, you're like really cool. So
I have a very weird career.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say that's kind of a, you know, who would have thunk it? But
yeah.
How did you get into that? Just
Well, I think being in Food Corps, you know, you meet a lot of really interesting people doing things related to food, and so I started experimenting with fermentation. I had been interacting with a lot of local farmers, so that was important to me, and so I just started making fermented food. And there were no commercial kombucha producers in Mississippi. And coming from Colorado, where you could like get kombucha on tap, it was like, oh, well, this is something that we should have here.
exactly.
And so it was kind of an exciting venture, and people liked my kombucha, my sauerkraut, and I still will occasionally get a phone call from someone being like, do you still sell kombucha at the farmer's market? I'm like, no, I haven't done that in 5 years, but yeah.
You love to write. You're a fantastic writer, by the way. You've got your master's in creative writing from the W. That's pretty cool. You loved Eudora Welty.
Yes.
And you still do.
Yeah.
Sorry, in past tense. But you got to literally live right in the world of Eudora Welty. Tell us a little bit about that job, because that had to be so rewarding because of the people that probably came through her house.
Yes, that definitely was one of my favorite parts, just getting to tell people about. So I worked at the Eudora Welty house.
Yes.
And her house is now a literary house museum, so it's completely preserved, like when she lived there. And so it really just got to dive into the whole world of Eudora Welty's life and her writings, and I feel like that really helped me understand Mississippi in a new way too, just because she was like a Mississippian to the core, even though her parents weren't from here. But yeah, that was such a cool experience. And there's also a garden there, preserved, a historic garden, so that was kind of more of an unknown part of her life, that she was an avid gardener, so I really enjoyed getting to know her that way as well.
I remember when I first moved here, you could go to the Jitney, which is and she'd be shopping.
That's amazing. I love hearing those stories.
Yeah, no, it just was. I mean, I literally, you know, oh yeah, Willie Morris. Oh, there's, you know, it was.
Do you ever remember what was in her shopping cart?
I wasn't quite that nosy.
Okay, you were polite.
Yeah. Hey, get up. Hang on, let me go through your stuff here on that. But no, I was just in awe. You know, Margaret Walker Alexander. You know, there was just a great thing. And I think you and I probably feel the same way about this. And you know, and I had a chance to leave and go to another state, and it just seemed to be kind of barren, at least culturally, compared to what we've got here. The fact that we can literally rub shoulders with great authors, great musicians,
Yeah.
great artists. I mean, it kind of feels like it makes you better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the arts here that's something I just love. And I
Yeah.
know that you've talked to me too about that. Being in Mississippi is just like you're surrounded by the arts. You like throw a rock and you can hit an artist,
Yeah.
whether it's a musician, visual artist, writer, you know.
And they'll
and
pick
so-
the rock up and throw it right back at you.
Yeah, exactly. They'll write a great scene about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's part of what I love too about Mississippi is like there's so much that helps you understand the history is
Yeah.
through the art. That's about, you know, Mississippi and about the experience of living here.
Yeah, I've always said it's kind of like, you know, when my kids were growing up, I remember taking them to the Delta and taking them to the B.B. King Museum and it was when the Help came out, so I took them to Greenwood and just kind of showed them around a little bit. And I want them to understand that because of the conditions that existed in the Delta at that time, that's why we got the blues. It's literally like a pearl, you know, you get a piece of grit and the arts kind of act like the thing that soothes around the pearl to make it more bearable. And we end up with this beautiful thing of art and literature and everything else here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's such a good encapsulation of Mississippi is like the history is so painful. There's so much, I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of hardship here. And then on the flip side of that is there's so much beauty.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what artists and musicians capture so
Yeah.
well is that, you know, those two dual sides.
Well,
of
you capture it too, because, I mean, Rooted, and I want you to tell everybody a little bit about Rooted and about where the idea came from. But so far, it has been, I mean, I was sitting there looking through it last night and thinking, okay, this is gonna be my go-to when I'm having a bad day. You know,
That's
because
awesome.
it makes me really proud of where I live.
Mhm.
And because you've got voices, because there's so much thought about brain drain and talk about brain drain. You honestly, it's almost like you're counter-programming
Mhm.
to that.
Well, I mean, so Rooted, it's a Substack, which for people who don't know what Substack is, it's kind of like a combination between a blog and a newsletter.
All the cool kids are doing it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a less toxic form of social media, basically,
Oh, wow.
because, you know, you don't have to listen to all the chatter in Twitter. It's like long form written. So we profile Mississippi transplants, expats, and Mississippi natives, and it's basically hearing their thoughts about home.
Yeah.
And initially, I'm a transplant, and I wanted it to be about transplant stories because we do hear so much about brain drain. But I was like, kept thinking of all of these interesting Mississippi natives or like Mississippi natives who had moved away. And I was like, man, I really want to hear from them too. So I think just encapsulating everyone that has a deep connection to Mississippi has been really valuable to hear those different perspectives.
When you moved here, how long do you think you'd be here?
Well, my AmeriCorps term,
We had 3 years.
I had, 3 years. And so I was like, well, that's probably going to be it, you know? So I definitely didn't think I would be here for 10 years or that I would marry a Mississippian and have Mississippi.
Oh, you're here forever now. Speaking of Rooted.
Yeah, exactly.
You're definitely Rooted. Yeah, I thought I'd be here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'm coming on 28 now. So.
Wow.
But yeah, no, it's a fantastic thing. Rooted, talk about some of the people that have written and some of the things that really jump out at you that you've read so far, or what people have written. I mean, my first thought was Katie Simpson Smith's piece was so powerful.
Yeah, she is a brilliant novelist. She lives in New Orleans. She's written 5 books, and she's only like 36.
Yeah, she needs to get busy with her life.
Yeah, right. So I love her fiction, and just hearing, she's written beautifully about being from Mississippi too, and just how complicated that is. And her last 2 books have been set in Rome. So I was like, man, that is an interesting perspective too. And so she did, a couple weeks ago, she did the Rooted questionnaire. And so the questionnaire is just basically a set of questions that instead of like, you know, an interview format, it's basically an interview, but everyone answers the same questions. But everyone has such different answers.
Different answers.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so she wrote from more of the expat perspective, living in New Orleans, but still having a family connection in Jackson.
Yeah, her mom's still here, and she actually taught here for a little while. I mean, so she was commuting, but she was still coming up here.
She was teaching at Millsaps, and she was actually, that's when she wrote her last novel, was while she was commuting back and forth from New Orleans to Millsaps.
Probably a little bit of voice notes and screen time.
I
she's
guess,
driving.
yeah, she's got to pack it in somewhere. She's busy, yeah.
Yeah, definitely on that. So And you obviously are an excellent writer. You actually filled out one of the questionnaires.
I
too.
did.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, well, I'm asking everyone else to do it, so I might as well do it. And I have two co-editors, Jira Muroff and Maya Miller, and they both did the questionnaire too. So we've all done the questionnaire, and I came up with a set of questions. I was like, this is going to be easy, but it took me so long because, I mean, they're kind of hard to answer.
They are. I mean,
Yeah.
I was sitting there just kind of going through them, going, "Wow, that's a tough question." So, okay, throw out a couple questions and how you would have answered it. Obviously, not verbatim because you don't have it in front of you, but just talking about what are a couple of the questions you ask.
An interesting question that I'm always interested in people's answer is, how has Mississippi shaped your life's path?
Yeah.
Because people can answer that in any number of ways, and I mean, for transplants, it's always interesting too, because I feel like Mississippi just takes you complete left turn, and you would never expect to end up where you end up. Another one is, what assumptions about Mississippi have you heard from people who have never been here?
Yeah.
And Fifth Child, who's a hip hop artist here in Jackson,
Oh,
Stephen
yeah.
Brown, he filled one out, and his question, or his answer to that question was, he met someone who didn't want to come to Mississippi because she thought as soon as she crossed the state line, she'd be like, it'd be crawling with possums. I was like, people just have the weirdest assumptions about Mississippi.
Of all the things to be afraid of, I think possums is pretty low on the list.
Right.
Although I do tend to draw them in my cartoons a lot, so I guess maybe I should be more afraid.
You're to blame for the narrative about possums in Mississippi.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to think Saturday Night Live probably played something into that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But so I remember when we got the job, and literally they kept saying, a friend of mine who was from here, and I was out in San Diego, he called me up and he said, "Hey, the cartooning job's open in Jackson, Mississippi," and I just got back from the beach. So right now, as we're filming this, it's about 5,000 degrees outside, and it was 74 degrees in San Diego, and I was just like,
oh my gosh.
the number you have reached has been disconnected. I kept, and finally I came, and it was the most surreal interview I ever had. They picked me up in a 74 Buick and drove me around, and they drove me past UMC at 10 at night. And they said, "There's a good place to go if you're ever shot." I mean, it was not a Chamber of Commerce kind of interview. It was really crazy. But anyway, I fell in love with the people on that interview, and that's what I told my wife. I said, "We got to move there. It's closer to home, Atlanta." And so, we moved here, and I remember we drove over to look for an apartment, and we stopped at the Meridian Rest area, and we got out, and there was a guy walking from the bathroom, and he said, "How are y'all doing today?" And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I went, "Run. He's going to attack us." Because we've been out in California for 2 years and nobody spoke to you on the street. So there was a degree of friendliness here that kind of just blew us away on that. But yeah, if I had to answer that question, how it shaped me, I would totally change my life for the better.
So so it was the people that convinced you on that interview that you wanted to stay?
It was a cartooning job.
Yeah,
It was my dream job on that. And also too, have you watched the news lately? Mississippi's a good place to be an editorial cartoonist.
There's no lack of material.
And you also, of course, you work for the Mississippi Arts Commission as well, and you get the chance to be able to help out the artists around. That has to be an incredibly rewarding job too.
It's a great,
You're passing out grants.
We're the only agency that provides direct grant support to artists in Mississippi, and so it's a great opportunity just to see who the artists are in Mississippi, because there's such a wide variety, and art organizations too that do really good work.
The pandemic, that had to be incredibly tough on all artists, because I know a lot of musicians, they really had to scramble because they couldn't do live performances and things like that. How is the state of the arts right now, the business of the arts? Is everybody seemingly picking back up?
It seems to have bounced back, and just based on the every year we keep getting more and more applications for grants, and so that to me is just a sign that people are making art, they need support, and that there's more people aware of the Arts Commission, and so I think that's a good sign.
One of my favorite things that y'all do is the Governor's Arts Awards, and Keith Francis, I just interviewed him.
Oh, he's
I love him.
wonderful.
He's who I want to be when I grow up.
Isn't he great?
He is truly great, because not only is he a fantastic artist over many different disciplines, but he understands the business of art, and he's got, the fact that he's been in the Getty, and you think about it, he's taught in Scotland and all these great things, but he's just fantastic to talk to, and he's so down to earth. So I've decided, I put him down on my list. I said, that's what I want to be when I get to be in my 70s, like he is like that. But this year's class was so strong.
Yes.
And it just says so much about our state and the level of artists that we have.
I mean, I feel like there's, a dozen people every year that should get
Yeah.
the Governor's Arts Award. So we're never going to run out of people.
I'm never gonna run out. No, you're
to
gonna one
give
year.
that award
"Ah,
to."
sorry, man, we're closing shop. That is on that.
Yeah.
Rooted. Where do you want to go with it? I mean, do you want to just keep, obviously keep telling the stories and so forth?
Man, I mean, right now it's a weekly, we put out weekly issues.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a breakneck pace, but I would love to do a podcast too.
A podcast, a book. I could see a lot of different platforms.
Like an anthology or
Yeah.
something. But there's so many people that maybe for whatever reason they don't want to sit down or they don't have time to sit down and fill out the questionnaire,
Yeah.
but they could, sit down for a 30-minute podcast interview. So I
Yeah.
think that would be interesting. There's just so many people I'd like to talk to, or to get to fill out the questionnaire. I mean, Jasmine Ward and Natasha Trethewey are I'm not sure they would ever have time to do that, but
Yeah. I got to
Yeah.
interview Jasmine Ward when I was doing conversations
wow.
at MPB. Oh my gosh, it was really funny because I think she was a little bit suspect when she came in. She was real quiet.
yeah.
But I think once she realized, number one, I'd read the book, that I was a fan of her books and everything, but she was absolutely amazing. And I'm like, you've gotten two local,
I mean, she's a hero.
She is, yeah.
She's incredible.
Okay, so that's a good place to go before we wrap up. Who are your heroes here in Mississippi?
Well, I guess Natasha Trethewey would be.
Yeah, that's a good
another
place
one.
to start, yeah.
Yeah, her memoir about her mother
Yeah,
and growing up in Mississippi is one of my favorite books of all time.
yeah.
Memorial Drive. So Casey Lehman is
Oh,
another
yeah.
one who I would love for him to do the Rooted questionnaire, and he follows us on Instagram, and so I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting for the right time to send
nice.
him an
Yeah.
email. But yeah, I would say those are a couple of my Mississippi heroes. Bill Ferris.
Isn't Bill amazing?
He's
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
and I was actually connected with him through John Zhang, who's a poet who lives in the Delta and teaches at Mississippi Valley State University, and he's friends with Bill Ferris, and so he did the Rooted interview and then connected me with Bill, and
Yeah.
Bill's answers blew me away, but his whole
Yeah.
career is just.
Oh, I know, to have the foresight at his age when he first started out to tell those stories and to make sure that they were told,
Yeah.
because they could have slipped into history and we never would have known it. I love Beth Ann Finley, one of my favorites.
Yes.
She and Tom are just incredible. And Beth Ann and I were both born in the same hospital.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was so incredibly random. Even though she didn't grow up where she was born, I didn't grow up where we were born, but it was like 2
that's
years
so
apart.
funny.
She's much younger than I am, but yeah, so that was really cool. So, but that's the thing. What's so neat about here is the fact that you get to know these people that are your heroes,
Yeah.
and get to know them on a personal level and so forth. Well, I'm thrilled. Number one, I'm just kind of thrilled to meet you. So,
Well, likewise,
Yeah.
and I am excited to send you the Rooted questionnaire. I hope
yeah,
you're
no,
able to
I'll really
fill
try to
that
do
out
my
somehow.
best on it.
Okay.
But it's funny because I had to do kind of an answer thing like for here recently about talking about my career and so forth on that. And, really honestly, I mean, because of my wife and because of moving here, the two reasons why I've got pretty much everything I've got. So that's pretty cool. And I'm just throwing that out because I'm in probably hot water with my wife. But there's a lot of, which I usually am after 30 years. But, no, it's, this is, I think Katie's quote was great. Mississippi's like a mother. No one will ever love you as much, but also no one has the same capacity to hurt you.
So accurate.
And it's like, it's great, but so far it hasn't hurt you and it hasn't hurt me. We're doing okay. We're hanging in there. Anything else you want to throw in?
I mean, I guess I just want people to, the point of the magazine is that people who don't live in Mississippi too can understand what it means to live in this place and the importance of Mississippi as part of our national narrative and national history too. So I think that would be like what I want people who aren't in Mississippi but maybe reading or like interested in reading about Mississippi stories would take from it.
It's just fascinating when you talk to people that come in and get their impressions. And like I said, I used to have fresher eyes than I do because I've been here for a long time now. But that's why I say I always love talking, like meeting you and talking about your impressions of moving here. And I think my number one impression that I like to share with people is that I had to slow down for automatic opening doors because I kept walking into them. I had to learn to slow my pace down.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you do have to here.
That's okay.
Sure.
And I gained 40 pounds when I first moved here too.
Well, the food is very good.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Once again, how can folks find out about Rooted?
rooted.substack.com.
Okay.
And we're also on Instagram and Twitter, but I think the best place to go is just rooted.substack.com.
Awesome. Laura, this has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Marshall, for
That's
having
great.
me.
Well, hopefully we can get you back on and we can talk some more sometime.
Sounds great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. And if you'd like to see other past episodes of Mississippi Stories, you can go to MississippiToday.org and check out our great coverage and also a few of my cartoons as well. And also click the like button, ring that bell. We'd love you to give us some likes and some love. Hey, thank you. We'll catch you next week here on Mississippi Stories. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.